Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be looking at 6.2, which is solving systems of equations using substitution method. So for question number 1, we have the system 3x plus 4y equals 12 and 2x plus y equals 10. Okay, now this is something we could graph, but this is going to be the first time we learn the substitution method, which is an out-of-break method, meaning we're going to be doing manipulation of our variables and numbers. So step number 1, we need to solve one equation for either variable. We want to solve one equation for either variable. Now, looking at your two equations, obviously one is going to be easier than the other. And that one in this first example is going to be the second equation. And the reason why I know this one will be easier to solve is because I have a single variable. All the other variables have coefficients. So in order to solve for this second equation, I could easily solve for y. So step 1, solve for a variable. So if I were to solve for y, that means I'm going to subtract 2x to the other side, which means y equals negative 2x plus 10. Okay. That's step 1. Okay. Step 2, you're going to substitute, hence the name. You're going to substitute the isolated expression into the other equation. Okay, so we are going to take this expression and we're going to substitute it into the other equation for y. So step 2, I'm going to have 3x plus 4, and rather than multiplying by y, I'm going to multiply it by the expression that we just solved for. Right? Oh, and I didn't specify that in step 2. Substitute the isolated expression into the other equation for the variable you solved for. I said it, I didn't write it. All right, step 3. You now are going to solve for the remaining variable. As you can tell, or hopefully can tell, since we substituted our expression in for y, we no longer have a y. So we have x and x, which means I can combine like terms and solve for x. So step 3 means I'm going to distribute, combine like terms, and solve for the variable. So first thing I'm going to do is distribute. So 3x minus 8x plus 40 equals 12. Combine like terms, negative 5x plus 40 equals 12. Subtract 40. We get negative 28. And divide by negative 5. I don't really need to write that. I said it, but I don't need to really write it. So therefore we get x equals, now a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 28/5 doesn't simplify. So my x is 28/5. Okay, you will get some fractions in these problems, okay? So do not be afraid of them. All right, that is step 3. Step 4. You are now going to substitute the variable you just solved for into one of the original equations to solve for the unknown variable. We're going to substitute the variable that we just solved for into one of the original equations to solve for the unknown variable. So we now know what x is. Now we need to figure out what y is. Now, does it matter which one we solve it into? No. But we do need to solve it into one of the original ones. So 2x, so step 4. So 2x, so 2 times 28/5 plus y equals 10. 2 times 28 is 56, so 56/5. And we need to subtract that to the other side. Now, do I expect you always to do everything in your head? No, you can use a calculator. Okay, subtract 56/5 to the other side, and you get y equals -6/5. Now remember, you are going to get fractions. Leave them as fractions and leave them as improper fractions, not mixed numbers. Okay, step 5, last step. We're going to write the solution as an ordered pair. So therefore, step 5, ordered pair would be 28/5, comma, -6/5. Now, if we were to graph this, that would be pretty hard to actually see because it wouldn't be a specific point on the graph on the intersections. It would be somewhere in the middle between 2 lines. So this is how we would solve it algebraically. And we're going to repeat those 5 steps throughout all our problems. So you'll solve one equation for either variable. It won't matter. Obviously, there are sometimes it'll be easier to do one equation versus the other. We will substitute that expression into the other equation for the variable you solve for. That is very important that you do the other equation. If you do the same equation, that's not going to help you. Solve for the remaining variable. And once you solve for that, you're going to substitute back into the original to find the other variable and write that solution as an ordered pair. And those are your 5 steps. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to number 2. Okay, number 2, our system is x plus 3y equals 5 and -2x minus 4y equals -5. Right, so step 1, solve one equation for either variable. Now again, there's going to be many opportunities to do whatever you want in this scenario. There's 4 different options technically, but one is typically easier or more preferred. And in this case, that would make sense to solve for x in the first equation, because again, it's a single variable. There's no coefficient to worry about. So if I were to rewrite that and solve for x, x would equal -3y plus 5. Okay, and that was step 1. If you want to continue the process of writing step 1, step 2, that's totally fine, but you do not need to. That was only done for the first one, so you could follow the work. Now we're going to take this expression and we're going to substitute into x of the second equation. So -2 times -3y plus 5 minus 4y equals -5. Now we're on to step 3, which means we are going to solve for the variable. So first I need to distribute. Distributing should get you 6y minus 10 minus 4y equal -5. Combine like terms, we'll get 2y minus 10 equals -5. Add the 10 over, we get +5 now. And divide by 2, that means my y equals 5/2. Okay, step 4, we're going to substitute that 5/2 back into an equation. Now, when I'm looking at what to substitute back into, I normally look at what I have here. So 5/2, I have to substitute into y. If I substitute 5/2 into y here, is that going to simplify? No, because 3 and 2 aren't going to simplify when dividing. But if I simplify 5/2 into this one, 4 and 2 when dividing, will simplify nicely, or at least easier. So -2x minus 4 times 5/2 equals -5. -4 divided by 2 is -2 times 5 is -10. And another way to think about that is -4 times 5, which is -20 divided by 2. Either way, easier because we're not dealing with an odd number. Add that 10 over to the other side and divide, and x equals -5/2. The last step, step 5, is to write our ordered pair, which would be -5/2, +5/2. Now, the biggest thing when you're doing this, you've got to make sure that you are keeping control of your negatives and positives, because one little negative or one positive mark can change your entire problem. So please be careful about the dropping negatives and making sure that you're multiplying and adding things correctly. Okay, because it is an algebraic method, it is really important that you do all those steps correctly. Well, it's important in general, but even more so. Okay, number 3. -3x plus y equals -5. 3x minus y equals +5. Okay, so step 1 is to solve for a variable. Now, in this case, we have 2 variables that both are single variables, but this one's a negative, which means I would have to get rid of the negative. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the positive one. So that means y equals 3x minus 5. And I'm going to substitute that into y for the other equation. 3y minus, that's minus y, so technically it'd be minus the quantity 3x minus 5. And then we need to distribute. 3x minus 3x plus 5 equals 5. Now when I go to simplify and combine like terms, what's going to happen here? 3x minus 3x is 0x, which means there's no more x's. And we would just be left with 5 equals 5. Right, now this is going to be a special case scenario. What do you think is going to happen if we have 5 equals 5? Well, first question, is it a true or false statement? Hopefully you said true. It is a true statement, right? So if it's a true statement, what do we think would be our special case scenario? Okay, well, if you think back to when we were doing graphing, we had 2 special case scenarios. We had no solution and we had infinite solutions. If we were to have a true statement, do you think that would mean no solution or infinite solution? Hopefully you're saying infinite solutions makes more sense, and you'd be correct. And so because we came out to a true statement of a number equaling another number exactly, that means we have infinite solutions. And remember, infinite solutions means that it is the same line. If you look up here, The only difference was negative sign. So if you multiplied 1 by a -1, you would actually get the exact same line. Okay, if I rearranged this one appropriately, I would get the same answer. And that's number 3, and that's one of our special case scenarios. Okay, I'm going to write down number 4, and I want you to try that one. Negative x plus y equals -2. 2x minus 2y equals 0. So again, that is negative x plus y equals -2, and 2x minus 2y equals 0. Good luck and try that one out. Okay, so after completing number 4, I see, hopefully you see the final answer, which is no solution. Okay, no solution, remember, is one of our other special case scenarios, and that is when our lines are parallel. Again, if you had solved this one, you would end up with the same slope, which means they're parallel, which means they will never intersect. So therefore, no solution. Okay, go ahead and try number 5. Okay, hopefully you're getting the hang of this and it's becoming a little bit easier. And now we're going to make it a little bit more complicated on you and throw some more numbers in there. So we have 5m minus 6n equals -14, and -2m plus 4n equals 12. Now, as you can tell, all of these have a coefficient, which means you do have to end up picking one to solve and manipulate your variables. Now, looking at the numbers, remember, you're going to have to simplify for one variable, and if there's a coefficient, you're going to have to divide. So rule of thumb is check for your numbers, okay? You want them either all to be even or all to be factors of 3 or 4, etc. So looking at that first one, we have 5, 6, and 14, okay? With 5, that's not going to really work nicely with our even numbers, but all here are all even numbers, all divisible by 2, which means it's going to be a fairly nice problem to work with. So if I were to rearrange this, now, if we rearrange this, it doesn't matter which one you want to pick. You could pick m, you could pick n. It doesn't matter. You will end up with the same answer regardless. But obviously for notes, we're going to have to follow the same process. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to solve for n. Right? So if I were to solve for n, the first thing I would get is 4n. I guess I should change my arrow. 4n equals 2m plus 12. Well, now I have to divide by 4. So if I divide by 4, I'm going to get 2 fourths, which simplifies to 1/2, and 12 fourths, which was simplified to 3. So I have 1/2 m plus 3. Now I'm going to substitute this expression in for my other equation. So 5m minus 6 times 1/2 m plus 3 equals -14. And we're going to distribute and solve for m. So 5m, -6 times 1/2 would be -3m. -3 times 3, or sorry, -6 times 3 is -18. And we simplify. We get 2m, add the 18, 2m equals 4, and oh, looky there, we have our first one where it's not a fraction. Okay, now we're going to take m equals 2 back into our equation to solve. Now, does it matter which one you do? No, you're going to get the same answer regardless which one you pick. I'm going to go ahead and pick the second one. So -2 times 2 plus 4n equals 12, which is -4. Add that 4 over, divide by 4, and we get n equals 4. Now the question is, how do we know which one goes first? Well, it's alphabetical. Just like xy is alphabetical, we would go alphabetical. M is before N in the alphabet, so therefore your answer would be 2, 4. Okay, and that is number 5. Okay, hopefully these are getting a little easier for you as far as the steps go, because we will be getting more complicated fractions within the next few examples. Okay, have your calculators handy. Number 6. Quantity 4x plus 6y equals 10. 8x minus 3y equals 2. Okay. Now, again, you want to look at what's going to be the easiest to simplify. Is it going to be completely simplified in the end? Most likely you're going to have fractions at this point, like I kind of already said. Now, but looking at our numbers, 4, 6, and 10 are all even. 8, 3, and 2, that 3 is going to make it a little bit more complicated, so we might as well go with the all even version. Now, is it going to be completely simplified? No. Into a nice number, but it'll be a fraction. Either way, a simpler fraction than working with odd and even. So, doesn't matter which one you want to solve for. You can solve for x, you can solve for y. I'm going to go ahead and solve for y. So it'd be 6y equals negative 4x plus 10. Now when I divide by 6, negative 4 6 will simplify to negative 2/3 x. And 10 6 would simplify to 5/3. Okay, so we are working with lots of fractions here. So now we're going to substitute this y back in. So we have 8x minus 3 times negative 2/3 x plus 5/3 equals 2. And we're going to distribute. So 8x minus 3, negative 3 times negative 2/3. Negative times negative is a positive. 3's are going to cancel, and we're going to end up with 2x. Okay, not too bad. Negative 3 times 5/3. Well, it's going to be negative 5. The 3's again cancel, and that will equal 2. Combine like terms. We have 10x. Add the 5 over, and we're going to end up with x equals 7/10. Okay. Now we're going to substitute that 7/10 back into my equation to solve for y. Okay, again, it doesn't matter which one you're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and go with the first one. Okay, but if you use the second one, you're going to get the same y value. So 4 times 7/10 plus 6y equals 10. Okay, 4/10, or 4 times 7 divided by 10, either way you want to think about it, will simplify to 14/5 plus 6y. Okay, subtract that 14/5 over. Again, use your calculator. 10 minus 14/5. Get a decimal. Math, hit the math button, third one down. Enter, enter, and you get a fraction, 36/5. Y equals 36/5. Okay. From here, I divide by 6. Okay. If it goes back to a decimal, again, hit math, enter, enter, and you hit your fraction again. So y equals 6/5. So final answer, 7/10, 6/5. Okay, great work. Let's move on to number 7. Hopefully we're, again, getting the hang of this and Even though we're getting some crazier, harder fractions, we're just working through them and persevering. Okay, remember, math is all about persevering and pushing forth, especially when things get a little bit more tough. Okay, this one, 2x plus 15 equals 3y, and 4x plus 6y equals 5. Now, if you notice, that first one is rearranged in a weird order, but that's okay, because at the end of the day, we're going to have to solve for a variable anyways. Now, if you notice in this example, we don't have any that are all even. We do have odd and even, which is not necessarily, again, the worst thing in the world, but typically when they're all even or all divisible by the same thing, it's going to make things a little easier. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and work with that first one because it's already solved for 3y, so I might as well just divide by 3, which would result in 2/3 x plus, oh, and that one simplifies nicely to 5. Okay. But again, if you chose the second one, it's just going to take you down a different path, but you will end up at the same answer as long as everything works out throughout your problems. Okay, we're going to solve for, or sorry, substitute for y. So 4x plus 6 times 2/3 x plus 5 equals 5. And I'm going to go ahead and pause it here, and I want you to go ahead and try the remaining part of this problem to see how you do. All right, let's see how you did on number 7. So your final answer should be negative 25 eighths and 35 twelfths as your answer. Go ahead and look at over my work and see if you can find your error. And if not, always feel free to email me or private comment me if you have concerns about that one. Let's move on to number 8. Okay, number 8 is 4x plus 14 equals 2, and 3x minus 10y equals 13. So looking at my options, that first one, they are all even, so there's some hope that they will simplify at least a little. And the second one has odd and even. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the first equation because, again, it has all evens. So which one do I want to work with? Now, in the end, it doesn't really matter which one. But let's go ahead and say let's solve for y. Most of the times when I work with students, they always want to solve for y because that's what you're used to when you have slope-intercept form or anything else. If you want to solve for x, totally fine. We're going to go ahead and solve for y for this problem together. So if I were to solve for y, first I would have 14y equals negative 4x plus 2. And when I divide by 14 and simplify, I'm going to get negative 2/7 x plus 1/7. Okay, got those fractions back up in there. So now we're going to substitute this. So 3x minus 10 times negative 2/7 x plus 1/7 equals 13. Now, when we multiply this, this one is not gonna come out as nice and pretty as the ones above where it kind of worked out nicely. These are gonna be a little bit more complicated, so you're gonna have to get a little bit more comfortable with those fractions. So negative 10 times negative 2/7 will be positive 27 x, and negative 10 times positive 1/7 will be negative 10/7. Oops, sorry, my 7 kind of got a little crazy there. Okay, again, have that calculator next to you. So now we need to combine 3 and 27. So hand it in the calculator. 3 plus 27 comes out as a decimal. Fraction is 41/7. So 41/7 x minus 10/7 equals 13. Now I need to add my 10/7 over to 13. 13 plus 10/7. Math, enter. We get 101/7. 41/7 x equals 101/7. Right? And then we got to divide, right? So I'm going to divide by 41/7. You also could multiply by the reciprocal. Since you already have it in here and you're using the calculator, it's very easy to just say you're going to divide by a fraction, which we normally don't do, but it's already in the calculator. And it's already kind of crazy, but you'll get 101/41. Now, if you were to multiply by the reciprocal, you also could have gotten that a lot faster, right? I multiply by the reciprocal. Those 7s are going to cancel, and we're going to get 101/41. Okay. So either way, you'll get that answer. Okay, told you we'd get some crazy fractions up in there. Now we're going to substitute 101/41 back into an equation. Doesn't matter which one. I'm going to go ahead and go with the first one. 4 times 101/41 plus 14y equals 2. Since I already have that answer in there, or that fraction in there, I'm going to multiply by 4. Turn it back into a fraction. Okay. Again, could have done that by hand. 4 times 101 is 404. Makes sense to me. Now we got to subtract that over. So nice thing about it is it's already in the calculator. So I can say 2 minus, remember if you hit second answer, okay, it's going to take what you last did. Let me clarify. Second negative sign to get your answer again. If not, you can always just type it again. So 14y equals negative 322 divided by 41. And then we're going to divide by 14. Math, enter. And y equals negative 23rd 41. Okay, again, handy dandy calculator helps us out here. So final answer, 101/41, negative 23/41. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and write down number 9 as our last problem for today, and I'm going to have you try it on your own. I will give you a fair warning. It is similar to number 8, where you are going to get some fun fractions, okay? Emphasis on the fun, okay? But it will be a little complicated, but again, you can do hard things, you just have to try. Okay, so I'm going to write down number 9, and then I will pause it and let you try it on your own. Okay, number 9, 2x plus 13y equals 19, and 3x plus 8y equals 11. 2x plus 13y equals 19, and 3x plus 8y equals 11. Good luck. Okay, hopefully that went well for you, and hopefully you got a final answer of negative 9/23 and 35/23. Let's talk through how we got that. So I picked the second equation, had smaller numbers, might as well go with that one. End up with y equals negative 3/8x plus 11/8. Substitute that back in. Again, not so pretty with the simplifying, but it works. Okay, handy dandy calculator helps us out. 2x minus 39/8x plus 143/8 equals 19. Combine 2x and negative 39/8x, we get negative 23/8x plus 143rd x, 143rd eighths, sorry, I kept saying x, equals 19. Subtract that over, we get 9/8, and you should simplify with negative 9/23. Substitute that back in, go through all the math steps. You should end up with 35 divided by 23 or final answer of -9/23 and 35/23. That is the last problem for today. Hopefully that went well for you. If you have any questions or concerns, please email me and let me know what you need answered or what you need help with. Good luck on your assignment. Have a great day. Bye.